What's happening, guys? I'm Cooper Carter here for G66, and on this week's Fractal Friday, I'm going to show you how easy it is to use the Axe 3 to tone match your favorite guitar tone. And in the process, we're possibly going to answer the question, could metal's greatest riff actually be a clean riff? The middle instrumental section of Metallica's Master of Puppets is probably one of the most unexpected moments in all of metal. After 3.5 minutes of just relentless, glorious high gain, downpicking, and aggression, everything just stops and then changes entirely. This clean progression coming on the heels of, again, 3.5 minutes of just violent metal is delicate and haunting and almost classical, really, by comparison. It's one of my absolute favorite musical moments ever. And in Master of Puppets, it's really kind of the eye of the storm. It's this sudden calm right in the middle of one of metal's heaviest tracks, and honestly, my pick for probably the greatest metal song of all time. The progression is eerie. You've got open, arpeggiated chords, no distortion, no palm muting, just a beautiful, clean tone. First alone with the drums, and then as the foundation to probably one of modern music's greatest and most iconic harmonized lead sections, or guitarmony sections. And then after that, you get one of my all-time favorite guitar solos from James Hetfield. After that, though, you get a twist, a masterstroke, if you will allow me a pun. Hetfield cranks the gain way back up all of a sudden and plays the exact same clean riff. It comes back again, but this time it's distorted. Same notes as the clean section, more or less. There are a couple different notes toward the end of the phrase. Same rhythm, but now instead of clean, it's the heaviest, most aggressive, palm muting, crushing tone you can possibly imagine. The exact same riff transforms from something that was melancholic into something that's honestly downright menacing. And that's what makes this riff to me so brilliant. It's not just a riff, it's a motif. It's not just heavy because it's distorted, it's heavy because it wasn't before, and now it is. So in previous Fractal Fridays, I've shown you how I like to dial in tones by ear, just with some very critical, careful listening and combinations of amp tweaks, IR selections, and honestly some pretty precise and heavy EQ work. And if you go back, if you haven't seen those videos, we've done Smells Like Teen Spirit and some Linkin Park tones. We've had a lot of fun with that. I've also demonstrated how easy it is to use the Axe 3's tone match block to turn an otherwise pretty sterile acoustic pickup into a beautiful studio quality multiple mic sound for use on a live stage. And both of those videos are linked in the video description. So I felt like the logical third part to this series of videos then would be to show you how easy it is to tone match any electric guitar sound that you like, provided that there is a section of a song where only the guitar is playing. That's really important. You need solo guitar. So it's even better if you have access to the stem tracks for that tune. Now, as always, this is just a very quick video covering one technique, but if you want to get the absolute most out of your Fractal Audio Systems unit, whether that's the Axe 3, the FM9, or the FM3, make sure to visit classes.coopercarter.com to enroll in my complete Fractal Audio Masterclass series. So, given that Metallica released a Guitar Hero game way back in 2009, the stems for most of their songs have long been and are still readily available online. You can find them on YouTube and other places. So we're gonna work with the actual stem tracks from Master of Puppets here. Tone matching in the Axe 3 is not a silver bullet. It's not a panacea. It does require a little bit of work, and there's a bit of art to it. It's a little more art than science sometimes, but the most important thing is, as I mentioned, you want to have a solo guitar part, a guitar part that's alone in the song with nothing else playing to be able to capture the EQ spectrum, the tone of that part. Now, of course, we have the stems here. I'm going to go ahead and solo this guitar so that wherever we click, be it the clean or something dirtier, we have solo guitar. Now, again, I've gone ahead and separated these parts out. You'll notice that there are some parts where there's overlap on this stem. So here, so you want to make sure that the harmony part and the solo part are not overlapping. So this part right here, there's actually all of those parts going on at the same time. So we just want to be careful about what we're actually feeding the tone match block. So let's start with this clean tone. We'll switch over to Axe Edit. Of course, with a clean tone on this album, you're going to be talking about the Jazz 120 based on the Roland. This was the go-to clean amp for many bands in that era. Metallica was certainly one of them. A great clean amp, and of course it had that integrated chorus circuit, so I have gone ahead and put a chorus block. I've also just kind of set up the preset with what I think we're going to need: compressor, chorus, obviously the tone match block, a little reverb, probably an enhancer, so that you can turn this on and have a little bit of that double tracking vibe even if you're playing alone. And then I always like to use the multiband compressor when I'm working with album stems because it can help put a little bit of that album mastering sheen on it. Let's start first with this Jazz 120, and I've gone ahead and just selected a Jazz 120 cab IR here. We're going to end up replacing this cabinet with the tone match block. The tone match block is going to take the place of our cab, but just while we're dialing in our initial sound, I'm going to start with this IR. So the trick with tone matching is that you want to help out the tone match block as much as possible. You want to get it as close as possible using the standard amp cab combination, especially when it comes to the amount of gain, the response of the amp. Those are things that the tone match block is not going to change. So we want to make sure that we have the amp feeling and sounding generally in the ballpark. And then the closer you can get, the better. So right now, this is just at its standard settings. Pretty gritty. I definitely don't want that grit, so I'm going to go ahead and wind that way down. It's a little better. I'm going to bring this up a bit. Yep, and now I'm just going to pull out some bass, probably come down and bring the mids down a little bit as well. And then jack the treble up a good bit. Go ahead and turn on this bright switch as well. Yeah, that's definitely cleaned up very nicely. Let's go ahead and try out our chorus here. Now, the chorus is obviously a super integral part of this sound, and in the studio, they would have used the chorus that's actually in the Jazz 120 amp. So we're gonna recreate that here. I'll turn on the chorus block, and I'm gonna select the dual chorus. There is, of course, a CE2 in here, but the CE1, which would be closest to what was actually integrated into the amp's circuit, would be what we'd want to use. So I'm going to recreate that. Shout out to Matt Picone, who has a really nice little recipe for recreating the CE1 using this dual chorus. I'm going to go ahead and just, for my sanity, zero out the right side of this so I know that I'm working on the left, and go ahead and pop this up a bit, and I'm going to bring this down, and I'm going to also just crank this mix up a good bit, and let's see what we have here. Very nice. My last thing I want to do is switch this to triangle. Very nice. Let's check out our compressor here, get a little bit of snap going. I tend to use the dynamic comp for most of these kind of sounds. Let's try the classic to start with and see what we get. That is way too much compression. I'm going to bring that down. And one of the many wonderful things about being in Fractal land is that I can actually adjust the mix on this compressor, which is not always something you would have the option of doing on a compressor pedal on a board. Let's check our stem just for reference. Yeah, so we've got the right amount of chorus. Now keep in mind, of course, there are multiple guitars playing on that recording. So playing alone and while you're dialing it in, you've got to keep in mind that that effect is present. So you're not necessarily going to be as jazzed about it. No Jazz 120 pun intended. You could turn on the enhancer to kind of simulate a little bit of that. And I would actually probably take that enhancer width up. This classic type enhancer is just the standard delay effect. This is 0 milliseconds of delay. This is 20 milliseconds of delay. So somewhere around 75% or so would be about 15 milliseconds, which is a pretty wide spread and can really kind of, you can kind of get away with that as a double tracking effect. I do want to check the stem one more time here and listen to the ambience on this tone. There's definitely some room mic or maybe some post reverb happening on the guitars. It's subtle, but it's definitely there. It's a really nice space. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on the reverb. It's defaulted to large hall. Obviously, that's not what we want. I'm going to go with one of my go-tos, the Recording Studio C. And I'm going to make a couple adjustments there. I'm just going to lower the time a bit and also shrink down the size. We're going for kind of just that like room ambience, not necessarily something that you hear, but you more kind of feel in the tone. Let's try this. So basically what we have now is a fully built out tone that if you were covering this song and you were playing it to an audience, they probably would be really happy with the sound. It's close enough, but the whole point here is to use the tone match block to really dial it in so that it sounds as much like the record as possible. So what we're going to do is actually bypass this cabinet block. I'm going to bypass the chorus as well because that can throw off your ear and we don't want to feed it into the tone match block as well. I'm going to turn on the tone match block here, and what we have is a reference graph and a local graph. And the reference is going to be our stem track that we're going to feed into the tone match block. And the local is what's coming into the block, my guitar signal running down this signal chain here. We're going to go to this configuration page, and this is where it becomes very important to go to your DAW, and in this case I'm using Reaper, and just go to your preferences in your DAW and make sure that your device is in fact your Axe-Fx 3. You want that as your audio device because when we play this stem, that will actually feed through the USB into the Axe-Fx. So I'm going to go into Axe Edit here and set the reference source to be USB 1 and 2, and that is the channel that we're going to be hearing Reaper on. The reference channel, I'm just going to select the left channel. It's got the same tone on the left and the right guitars, so it doesn't really matter. Local channel, my signal is in mono. The amp block collapses everything to mono, so even if I had a stereo chorus here, which I don't really, it would be collapsed into mono. So listening to one side of your sound is not a problem for tone matching. The big thing we want to do though is change this mode here from live, which is what you would use to tone match an amplifier, to offline. And offline is going to be anything that you're doing on your computer, feeding it Spotify, YouTube, in this case, stem tracks, anything like that. Offline is the mode that you want. I'm also a fan of cranking this averaging time all the way up to peak hold, and you'll see why in a second. And I'm going to go ahead and just select this clean section so that we loop that over and over. I've got the loop activated in Reaper here, and we want Reaper to just continually play this clean section into our Axe effects when we start to tone match. Just like we prepared the tone match block to best be able to match the sound by doing some work in the amplifier block to get close to it. We got the feel right, we got the gain structure right, we got in the ballpark tonally. We also want to help out the tone match block by playing something into this local recording that is similar to the part. So in this case, I would want to play what it's going to be hearing from the stem, because if I were to just feed it something like that's obviously a very different sonic fingerprint than what I'm actually asking the tone match block to end up with. So you want to play something that's close to what you're matching. And that's where this start both button will come in. You have two options really when it comes to tone matching. You can either start the reference and play in the stem and then stop it. Start the local, do your own playing, and then stop it. Or you can start both at the same time. That's what I tend to do. I like to play along with the part. I also like to see the graphs just kind of visually. It's interesting to see them start to settle and come into terms with each other and see where the tonal differences are. So what I'm going to do is start Reaper here, and it's just going to loop this section, and I will play along with it and start both of those sounds at the same time. So again, I'm going to be playing this stem into the reference side of the tone match block while I'm also playing my guitar into the local side of the block. So let's go ahead and start the stem. And I just hit match to end the recording of both because those graphs had both settled in. They weren't really changing anymore. And that's when you know that the tone match block has heard everything that it needs to hear. I like to give it a couple rounds through on a loop, and you can just watch visually as these settle. So in our configuration page here, we then have the amount and the smoothing parameters. The amount's going to control how strong of a tone match you're actually applying to your tone, this being no difference at all, and this being everything that the tone match block thinks it needs to do. And then you can also smooth out the humps somewhat if you're hearing any comb filtering, which sometimes can happen when you're doing a tone match. But let's see what we have here with this initial tone match without changing anything. I'm going to go ahead and turn the chorus back on, and we should be pretty darn close. Very, very nice. Let's go ahead and turn on this multiband compressor just to take it to the next level and see what we've got. Very, very nice. So we can go ahead now and go to the export page of this tone match block, and we are going to actually save this tone match as an impulse response that can then be loaded into our cab block. That way, this preset can be used in the Axe FX3, the FM9, the FM3, the tone match block is only available in the Axvex 3. So if we export the tone match as an IR, we can then put it in the cabinet block and it will cross all of the platforms. So I've selected the user 1 cabinet bank, spot number 1. We're going to call it master clean. I'll hit export. I'm going to save it. Now the unit will just do a quick read of all the cabs. And now we can bypass the tone match block, turn on our cabinet, and redirect this first IR slot to user bank 1, cab 1, and this will be the exact same sound that we had with the tone match block on. Just playing all the Metallica songs to make sure this video gets demonetized on YouTube. So that's our clean tone there. And I hope it's clear how quick that process actually is. You just make sure you've got the right settings on your tone match block, and then you can capture them either both at the same time or separately. So let's move up to scene 2, where we get into the dirty version of that same riff. We'll switch over to Reaper here and move over to this section here, which is the, again, much more overdriven version of that same very placid riff that we had before. And I alluded to this earlier, but when this riff is played clean, the last part is... But when it switches up to dirty, it's this. Which will obviously sound better once we actually dial in this tone. Right now, it's fairly anemic. So let's go ahead and listen to that stem one more time. We've got this breakdown part. And I stopped it right there because something that is always fun when you dig into stem tracks, there is a huge difference between these two rhythm tones during the breakdown, and then when it starts to kind of build up back toward the master part, it's pretty abrupt change, and the rhythm tone that comes right after this, which we're not matching in this video, is just absolutely massive. Just fucking awesome. So we're going to be matching this sound though. So I'm going to go ahead and set up a loop here, and then we'll do some work with our tone match block. I want to make sure that at the end of this loop, I'm not getting any of that dramatically different sound. So we've got that set. Let's go back to our preset. And just like with our clean tone, we really want to spend some time up front getting this amp as close as possible. But with a very overdriven heavy amp like this, it's even more important to get the gain staging correct. And sometimes I'll even get the gain feeling good, do a tone match, and then realize I need to tweak the gain a little bit, and then re-tone match it and do a couple tone matches on top of each other to just hone in exactly where I want the amp to be. So our starting point for this tone will be the USA Mark II C++, obviously based on a Mesa Boogie Mark II C++. The C++ was actually an older version of this amplifier that existed before this amp was rewritten in the firmware, and the guys at Metallica's camp requested that the older version of the amp be put in. So this is actually the amp type they're using live. It's an older version of the amp that has different tapers on the pots. But if anyone's familiar with the physical real world Mesa Boogie Mark series amplifiers, you will know that gain staging is everything with these amps, and the bass, middle, and treble play a huge part not only in shaping the EQ, as you would assume from their names, but also in the preamp gaining of this amplifier. So right now at its default settings, we are nowhere near where we want to be for this tone, obviously. I've also gone ahead and just picked a Recto standard, Mesa Boogie cabinet for us to use, just so it doesn't sound like this when we're dialing in our sound, but we will be, again, switching over to the tone match block. So the first thing I want to do is just gain this guy way up, but not as up as that other part we heard right after this little breakdown. And we're gonna, of course, given that this is a Mesa, we're gonna just drain a bunch of bass out of there. And drop the mids as well for that kind of scooped sound. Jack the treble way up to, 7.5, 8 or so. We're getting closer. A little bit of that out. And I'm gonna activate the treble shift. Oh yeah, we're getting closer. I brought the master volume up there a little bit, not to actually raise the level, but just to get a little more grind in there. Obviously, the vast majority of what's happening distortion-wise is coming from the preamp here, but just to get a little bit more squish and dig in a little bit more, I bumped that up. Not necessarily something you guys may be able to hear, but I can definitely feel it in my hands. So let's go ahead and, of course, turn to the cherry on top of any Mesa Mark Series amp, the output EQ. This is where you really start to shape how the amp sounds. It's almost like these tone knobs are more about dialing in the character of the overdrive, and then the EQing is actually happening on this output EQ. We're going to dial in the classic kind of V look, but I want to refer to my stem one more time just before we do that. It's just beautifully squishy, but you've got a really solid bass. There's a little bit of woof, but it's also very clear. You've got a really sizzly top end, and then that middle just sits really nicely. So you really can almost hear that visualization of the scoop that we're going to dial in, just that classic V. So as I play here, we're just gonna bring this amp to life here. Ooh, probably too much. Yeah, that's sounding really good. I'm gonna go ahead and kick on my enhancer and also kick on that same studio reverb here to give it a little bit of space. And get that double tracking sound without having to actually physically double track. Cool, so that feels right to me. I think we're in the ballpark. EQ-wise though, we're obviously still pretty far off, but we're gonna let the tone match block take care of that. I don't need to do as much EQing work. I just need to make sure that I'm getting the gain and the response and the character of an amplifier that I want to have. So let's go ahead and bypass this cabinet block like we did before. We do not want to feed the cab into the tone match. We want to just tone match off this amp, which sounds pretty horrible on its own, sans cab. So let's go into the tone match block. We're going to activate it. We're going to go to the configuration and just, again, make sure that we're listening to USB 1 and 2. We'll set the reference channel to left. You could do right. This part is at least double tracked. Local channel, again, left. And of course, the most important one, we are still in offline mode. And I'm going to keep peak hold here. And this time I'll do this separately so that you guys can see what happens when you just do one at a time. Let's go ahead and start our loop here. And we'll start our reference. So the graph settled, and now we'll do the local. I like to just play a little chord beforehand, so I'm feeding it something before we get to it. And that graph is pretty settled. We'll hit match, and we've got our resulting curve. And let's see how we did. There is a little bit of comb filtering that can happen when you match a stem, so we can just start adjusting the smoothing up a little bit. I'll start with somewhere in the kind of teens. And I'm actually just going to boost this overdrive up just a little bit more here. And you guys can hear it without the enhancer. Obviously, if you were tracking this, you'd want to turn the enhancer off and actually track a left and a right. So let's go ahead now and we can turn on our multiband compressor to get a little bit of sheen going. Let's go ahead and export that one. We'll go up to user cab number 2, and we'll call that master breakdown. Export that one. The unit's gonna read the cabs. And now we can bypass this tone match block, go to our cabinet, and switch channel B, which is our breakdown rhythm scene, to user 1, number 2, and we have that sound once again. So I hope it's clear how straightforward it is to use the tone match block with just a little bit of preparation. You don't have to painstakingly dial the amp in to be as close as you can possibly get in the EQ spectrum and spend a lot of time messing with EQs and trying to get various frequencies to sit just the way they do on the recording that you have, because as long as you do the legwork to feed it great sound, both in your local tone that's gain staged correctly and is somewhere in the ballpark EQ-wise sonically, and then you feed it a great reference that, in this case, obviously we have a stem, is very clean and is representative of the part you're trying to nail, then the tone match block is going to pull this local curve to be in line with the reference curve to get this to sound more like that. And as a little bonus for you guys, I went ahead and did separate tone matches for the harmonies and James Hetfield's solo. So you guys will see that we've got a master harms and a Het solo IR taken from those tone matches. You guys have got this to play with. With a beautiful chorus hall reverb. And then on 4, we've got Hetfield's solo. I'm partial to the S&M Symphony and Metallica version of that solo, which is slightly different. You guys probably noticed in the intro, I put a couple of extra notes in there. But I will be saving this preset now as a preset and cabinet bundle so that it loads these specific IRs into your unit at the same time that it imports the preset itself. I'll go ahead and go to Preset, Export Preset and Cab Bundle. And as you can see, the Asphyx is telling us that this preset uses 4 cabs. These are all user cabs in bank 1. Number 1, master clean. Number 2, master breakdown. Number 3, master harms. And number 4, Het solo. So we'll go ahead and export that. And that will be linked in the video description for you guys to download and install in your own unit and have some fun playing through the absolutely wonderful middle of this classic song. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please do make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to G66's channel, and leave me a comment in the comment section below letting me know what you would like to see on a future episode of Fractal Friday. We have some very special artist tone tours coming up later this summer that I'm very excited about, so stay tuned for that. And again, the preset and cab bundle is linked in the video description, so you guys can install this preset and its tone match created IRs into your unit and play through this wonderful middle section of Master of Puppets. As always, if you guys want to get the absolute most out of your Fractal Audio Systems unit, whether that is the Asphyx 3, the FM9, or the FM3, make sure to visit classes.coopercarter.com for the complete Fractal Audio Masterclass series. For all things Fractal Audio, keep it right here on G66, and I will see you guys very soon on Fractal Friday.